So before I start questioning you, I have a question for the audience. How many of you, when you first saw this episode, teared up at the end?
Ugly cry.
That was completely unexpected. Yeah, I mean, it was unexpected. And in fact, I was actually just telling Will that as I watched the episode, I watched it with my husband. He does not cry at all. And I turned around and he was just like, yeah. So was it like that for you when the writers, or when you were reading around the table? Or did you expect that that episode was going to be that poignant at the end?
No. I mean, we got the script the night before, and I think all of us read it, and we were like, what, like, word? We're like this? We're ending it like, this is a comedy, we're ending it like this? And then we did the table read, and everyone was bawling, all 6 of us, and poor Darcy, she was, she has that speech at the end, and she's supposed to be relatively emotionless, and she was just like, bah, the whole time trying to get through it. So yeah, we were all pretty rocked too, when we saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In general, this is such a surprising series on so many levels, and it starts with the performances, of course, but also the writing. And as a playwright, it must be interesting for you to kind of look at these scripts and see all the things that are integrated into your character interacting with this world. Yeah. So let's kind of talk about, let's kind of start with that. As an artist, that's not just as an actor, but as a playwright. How when you first came to the series, like, what was your first take on it, just from an artistic point of view?
Well, it's odd working in TV, coming from theater, just because when you're doing a play, you know exactly where you're headed, and you sort of plot the whole thing out, and you have it's like, okay, so at this point on page 75, this person says this about me, so that goes into the bank of like the things that are my character. And in TV, it's like you get this, you get a little 30-page script, and maybe in 4 years someone will say something about your character, but you didn't plot that.
Right.
You didn't know it was coming, and so I feel like it's sometimes as an artist, it's just you got to play as close to you and sort of like what your tendencies and tricks and stuff are in order to just sort of remain truthful. And it also like provides you a spine when you're communicating with the writers and directors and stuff like that about like what your character would do if something feels completely out of left field. You have to kind of steer the ship a little bit more. Whereas I feel like with theater and even with movies, where what the end is and where it's headed, you lean a little bit more on the writer and director.
How much do you get to kind of have input into Chidi, not just in terms of how he appears to us, but if there's something in the script, do you ever say like that doesn't work for me, or maybe we should do it this way, or is it pretty solid?
Not with this writer's room. I pretty much just I trust them. They haven't steered us wrong. So I generally I try it, and then they'll be at the monitor watching it. And if it's trash, we change it,
Right.
But I think like as an actor, I'll try anything, and I'll commit to a terrible choice, and then I'll just let people tell me if that's, if it's terrible, and rather than judge it before, because you never know. Sometimes, you can make a really out of left field decision like on the day, and it's great. It's what makes the scene. It's what keeps it unexpected. So yeah, I tend to just sort of just get in the playpen and just go for it. Yeah.
I've noticed over the years there's a difference just in terms of approach to character and also approach to the actual like show between someone who comes from theater and someone who goes straight from, going straight to Hollywood and just starting to do auditions just to be on screen. It's not necessarily a positive or negative one way or another, but just in terms of execution of character. And one thing that I've heard coming back to me frequently is that people who start in theater, there's sometimes a difference, like a tune-up they have to do between really kind of speaking to the back row versus having a camera right in play, right. There's a difference in characterization, and I don't know if you experienced that or.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So how do you do that, and just in terms of going from having a TV camera right there and capturing every nuance, and versus necessarily being able to kind of temper that to a live space?
Well, honestly, doing things in a live space feels more real. I mean, even though you're trying to hit the back row and everything, it's just you're in charge of that experience. From the time that you set foot on that stage to the very end, you're guiding that ship, and your partner on stage or partners on stage may do something that is slightly different from the night before, and that plays into it. It'll you rehearsed it. I mean, it's the same play, but it's it's the energy will change slightly, and with TV, it's like, and also it's just like you have 2 hours in your head,
Right.
you're shot out of a cannon, and you just hope that you hit the net, and I think that with TV, there's there's this thing about you have to match what you did in other coverage. You have to sort of play things very specifically, and you have to position your body sometimes in ways that are just completely not human in order to make something work.
Yeah.
And it looks more real, but it feels, especially coming from theater, it feels really inorganic at first. And then also, it's the first season, God, the note that I always got was just hey man, just bring it down. Just bring it down, dude. It's we're right, it's too much. And so, it's almost like, you do all the same work, you just put it behind a veil a little bit. And then, it's it does sort of allow you in private moments and in smaller moments to actually just be private, and whereas on stage, you have to whisper like that, when you're telling someone something, and make sure that everything is heard. And so that's sort of a nice thing to actually be able to play in certain moments the absolute truth, rather than being aware and not having to sort of cheat your body a certain way, so people are catching things.
Right.
It's but yeah, it's different. I think that also you have a page, 2 pages, 3 pages in your head at one time, as opposed to this Bible of stuff. And there's no rehearsal. There's rehearsal, but it's not, you're not sitting there hashing everything out and asking a bunch of questions about what's, dramaturgically, how does this fit? It's, there's some of that, but it's very truncated. And so you kind of come in ready to go. Which I think, again, it's if you're playing closer to you, it's easier to do that, and so it's, yeah.
So that's a good segue to take a different take on what you just said, playing closer to you. There have been a number of actors who've come through as split screens, and one of the things they talk about is the differences between who they are as people and their character. And in fact, in the Queen Sugar panel, I don't know if any of you were there, but Kofi was just saying, I wanted to be so different from Ralph Angel, but then I realized how similar I was in certain respects. Chidi is so specific, to put it away, in so many ways. And I wonder, how much, when you look at that character, how much do you feel that you are similar, and what parts of you do you bring into that character? Or do you find that character is starting to leak into who you are as a person?
No, I leaked into Chidi. It's.
Are you really aware of your almond milk issue?
I switched to oat milk, actually. after those, because I mean, like, I knew that almonds were bad for the environment, but I mean, I didn't. But I was like, yeah, but I just, I can't have that regular milk, I want to keep my friends. I'm not trying to like fart them out of the house, and so,
Wow, I hadn't thought of that. Okay.
It's,
I was thinking more of the environment, but
no,
I guess that's also environmental.
No, I'm thinking about
continue.
I'm thinking about them farts, but like, but then I did, so I switched to oat milk. But like but I think that like Chidi is sort of like a send up of all my worst tendencies in a lot of ways. I mean, I'm a pretty anxious dude, and I didn't really realize how anxious I was until a couple of years ago. My girlfriend is just like, you hold your breath a lot.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, when you're like talking to someone or meeting someone new, you just like.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, oh yeah, I do. And and so like the anxiety is something that I'm like, oh yeah, I do just sort of, someone will send me a text and I'm like, I can't deal with it. It's like I just. And so it's like that sort of stuff that's just me. And then the indecision, like I'm the worst at making decisions. I mean, whereas Chidi talks about it, I don't. I disappear and just go into a little sweat lodge and come back with wisdom, and that's it. But I mean, like some of those things were. I mean, I had the meeting because when I auditioned for the show, I don't know how many of y'all know this, but they gave us dummy sides or a dummy script that wasn't the actual. They didn't give us any of the plot or premise of the show,
Okay.
and we just had sort of this, approximation of the character that we would be playing. And when I went in and talked to Mike Schur and Drew Goddard, they told me what the plot of the show was and who I was actually playing, and they mentioned things about indecision and stuff like that, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm totally indecisive, and the stomach aches thing, that's me. I do that. I mean, like when I get really upset and I'm like a little freaked out, and so like those things sort of started to work their way into the script, after our meeting, and so that's just an expression of. I'm pointing at the screen as if I'm there. But like that's, but yeah, that's just sort of me. It's just like all the stuff that I don't say, and instead I just like, hold my breath and sweat in the corner.
Okay, it doesn't come across. So I'm wondering when you were doing that initial read, which one was running out, the anxiety or the I've got this because of the anxiety?
During the initial read?
Yeah, just when you were auditioning. This is just my own curiosity.
Oh. Well, the cool thing about acting is it's hiding in plain sight,
Yeah.
It's so, I mean, honestly, it's like I feel the most relaxed when I'm working, because all these things that I think and that I feel that I think are not charitable or good or things that I don't like about myself, I get to just sort of lean into it a little bit and sort of exercise those demons a bit. And then at the end of it, people are like, "Oh wow, that was so great. That was so unlike you." And it's like, "Yeah, man, that was nothing like me at all." So yeah. I mean, like, the audition was fun. I mean. The only thing that got me was during that screen test, they didn't tell me that Kristen Bell was going to be there.
I was like, whoa.
Yeah, and she's obviously she's incredibly kind.
Right.
But it's like I walk in and there's this incredibly good-looking person in the corner, and I'm just like, you know what? Don't look at that person. They'll throw you off your game. Just don't do it. And then she comes up and we have to read together, and it's just like pit sweat, just like instantly, just and so that was a little nerve-wracking, yeah. But she was great. She was we had a lot of fun reading together, and But that first table read, where we're meeting all the execs and stuff for the first time, and meeting, in this huge room with these people, and people get fired from these things. Like if you have a bad read at the table, they will fire you. Mm-hmm. And so that felt like that was the stomach aches, the sweats, all that stuff. That was in full effect at that moment. But then, but I made it, So, yeah. But usually acting, I'm fine.
Yeah. Well, let's flash forward from then to right where we are now, on the precipice of season 4. And first of all, was it told to you, or did they say at the beginning, like, you and Eleanor are eventually going to or Chidi and Eleanor are eventually going to get together? Was that established initially, or is that something where it's like, oh, we see this chemistry, and so I think this would be a good place to go?
I think it was something that they already had planned on. I didn't know that. They kept us in the dark about what the show was, and even the ending of the first season. Like, we had no idea. We were just sort of like, just doing our job and just bopping along. And it was like, oh, I wonder how long this can last, And then, like in that first season, on like episode 10 or so, they called us in a room and told us the whole thing. And so I know that they had a lot of stuff mapped out already, but they didn't tell the 4 babies. They didn't tell me and Manny and Darcy and Jamila much of anything. But then, like in season 2 and 3 and 4, they started to let us in on some things and tell us where the season was going, since they knew we could keep a secret and not tell everyone what the end of the show was.
Right, yeah. And the other thing, and then I'm going to open it up to you guys, is that it's really surprising to me, in a great way, that in this day and age, a show can have so much information and integration to the plot related to philosophy, which is one of the, philosophy and theory, which is one of the wonkiest things that you could possibly think of for a network comedy to embrace. And your character has to filter a lot of that. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering how much of that, was any of that in your wheelhouse when you first came to this series? Like, were you like, oh, I'm secretly a philosophy nut?
Absolutely not. No. I took a couple of classes in college, and I remember walking out of both of them and just being like, why are they just making stuff hard for the sake of being hard? This, and I was just very. I got older and grew to be more open to things, but as a 19-year-old, I was like, this is just hard. I'm like, why are we unpacking, why the ball is not on the floor? Why are we doing that? It wasn't in my wheelhouse at all. So I think I've tried over the last couple of years to do a little bit of research here and there, just like have some sort of grasp of what I'm talking about when I have those long, sort of screeds about philosophy or the trolley problem or whatever. I have to know what I'm talking about, and so I tried to read some books, too dumb to to take any of it in. And so it's like it goes from a book to a summary of that book, still too dumb. And then I just go to the Wikipedia page.
You ever just
and
go
I'm
like, so-and-so for Descartes, for dummies.
Yeah, I should do that.
I'm sure that book exists.
I'm sure it does. And, eventually I just go to Wikipedia and I'm just like, let's someone else can distill this down for me, because I'm in the weeds. And
Wikipedia doesn't always help in that regard.
No.
Because people are improving it, and sometimes it's like, just stop.
No, yeah. I mean, and also, you could get some wrong information. Someone will tell you that, Quentin Tarantino was in the cave with Socrates.
Exactly.
Or Aristotle rather. So it's, you got to be careful.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, I'm sure some of you have some questions for Will. What would you like to know? Don't be shy. There you go. We have a mic for you. That's okay, I'll repeat.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've gotten to learn about the parents of each of the main characters, and I'm wondering if we're ever going to learn about Chidi's family and like his, because it sounds like he has an extraordinary story of traveling around the world and teaching and things like that. And so I was wondering if you knew anything, if you had like created your own backstory about Chidi's long journey and his family, or whether that's something that we're going to learn in this new season.
Did you all hear that? Okay, go for it.
I mean, I did concoct my own little backstory, and you're gonna have to wait and see. I mean, like, what am I gonna say? But I did concoct my own little backstory about, these knowledge evangelists just like traveling and with a little serape, around their shoulders, just like telling people, just giving knowledge to folks or whatever, and teaching at universities and stuff. But yeah, you'll have to wait and see. You have to wait.
Did you wonder why there was not any backstory for your character in that season? I just wanted to follow up on that.
Sure, yeah. But I mean, I think the one of the things about our show, I think, is it is sort of trying to stay ahead of the audience as much as it can until it's fun for the audience to be ahead of the characters, and so sometimes like not having the clearest picture of exactly why someone is the way they are. Can help. It can hinder sometimes too, but I think it can really help sort of just keep the momentum moving forward. And so I'm more inclined to sort of leave questions that aren't absolutely salient to leave them to the side a bit. But it would be good to know a little bit more about Chidi. I want to know, what they thought.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I see someone over there.
What age did you start acting?
What age did he start acting? Is that what you're asking?
What age? Oh my goodness. Best hair in the room.
Also, you all just missed. He's like, what up?
Best hair in the room. How old are you? 11. When I was 12, actually, my mom made me do theater classes because I was really shy, and so she was like, you've got to learn to talk to people. And so I started doing it then, and I thought it was going to be like super corny and wearing pumpkin pants and having cheesy scenes with a girl on stage where I have to say mushy stuff, and I didn't want to do that. And then I started I was like getting to do improv and stuff like that, and so I was like, oh, this is actually a lot of fun. So it was then I just did it through high school and in college, and now I'm old. Yeah.
All right. How about back there? There you go.
Hi. So all the characters on the show change a lot and then unchange sometimes and then change again. So I was wondering what you feel is like the core Chidi characteristics that you carry through all the resets, and if there was a point where you were like, okay, now I understand this guy, and like what that was.
Man, that's a deep dive question. I think it was probably, well, for Chidi, it's the indecision. It is the rigidity of a philosophy that he follows. Anxiety, rigidity, indecisiveness. Those things really paint a pretty clear picture of what the insides of a person are like, I think. I mean, especially that character. And I think through all the resets, those things sort of stay. I think one of the infuriating things about Chidi, is as I watch it, is that that anxiety and that indecision and that sort of commitment to what is the right thing can sort of turn into a kind of self-obsession. And I feel like that's kind of one of the things that sort of throughout every reboot sort of rears its head, and so like I feel like not that I hang on to self-obsession, but the other stuff sort of it always, no matter what happens, those things sort of just sort of push the character in a certain direction. And until last year when in season 3 when we found out about the point system and the Jeremy Bury Me timeline and all that stuff, like once that happened, everything broke, nothing mattered, and so it's like even it's I feel like it's when there's a big sort of shift in the world, that's when Chidi sort of shifts. But as far as just sort of interpersonal relationships, I can talk to someone and still just like really hold on to what I believe. And so like but this, when the world shifts, it's too big. It's too big to actually reason away. And so yeah, it's like those are the things that I sort of hold on to, and yeah, I feel like also that Jeremy Bury Me episode was where I actually felt like this is a little bit more of what Chidi actually wants to be, is just a little bit more just in the moment. It's like nothing matters except this person in front of me, and so I think that's an important part of like a character too, is like, who do you want to be? There's who the character is, right? And then like in an ideal world, who would this character rather be as a person? And I think that's closer,
Mm-hmm. I'm going to get every single section, so there you go.
So this show is different, obviously, than any other. I'm a media critic, and The Good Place, I think, is probably the best show that I've seen in at least the last decade in terms of being both laugh a minute and also about something deeper, and the chemistry with the actors. But I'm wondering, sort of, how is it to play a role that has such sort of philosophical and moral and ethical meaning while also having to bring the funny all the time? And has playing Chidi and being part of The Good Place affected your own sort of sense of ethics in your day-to-day life?
Wow.
All right. Yeah, no, y'all, yeah, going deep. It's like it's Sunday, y'all. So the cool thing about all right, I'll do the playing Chidi is absolutely played into how I move through the world, just because I feel like the response from the audience to something that is so optimistic but snarky at the same time, it's sort of shifted the way I feel about people. Because I just sort of, we're living in kind of a trash time. And so it's nice that people are latching on to a bunch of people caring for each other, looking out for each other, and doing the best they can. And the fact that resonates so strongly is really encouraging. So it's totally changed the way I move through the world. I'm like, it's like it does matter if you do something nice for someone. They will take that in, and it won't just go nowhere. It actually sort of sparks something possibly. So there's that. And then, what was the first part again? It was, anyone remember? Oh yeah, bringing the funny in the with the humor and the ethics. Well, the cool thing about this character is actually I'm the straight man a lot. So a lot of my jokes are more about the reaction to some sort of insanity that's happened, and so that's actually pretty easy to do. All you got to do is like think about what it is like to be a person standing on 6th Avenue and see someone kick a puppy into the sun, and what does that do to you? You know, like you're just like, there's no way that you can, really craft a reaction that's going to be organic and funny. So for me it's like it's pretty easy to bring the fun in, but it's also like my job most of the time is to set people up and to make sure that my scene partner is given the line the way that they need to get it in order to nail their joke. And so for me it's actually in a lot of ways it's I won't say it's easy, but sometimes that the pressure to make sure that I get the guffaw is not on me. And I feel like that's just like a good way to actually just to act as an actor is like your scene partners are the most important thing in your universe when you're working, and so you do your best all the time, no matter what, to make them look good. Like that's the point, and in turn, the scene works. It's like one of the things that is tough about comedy, and some of the comedies that I won't mention here because I don't want to drag anybody, but like one of the things that I've seen in a lot of comedies is you see people competing for the laugh and trying to leave the scene being like, I was the favorite in that one, and that's awful. It's painful to watch because you see people trying, and the acting and especially comedy really works when it looks effortless. And so that's the thing that I try to do in the midst of tweaking out because I'm nervous and anxious and indecisive.
I am so sorry to say that we're out of time. But thank you. One thing I wanted to say is that The Good Place is going to be back, of course, as you know. But before that, Midsommar is going to be in theaters.
Yeah.
With Will playing a very different character and surrounded by a bunch of people I presume are going to the bad place.
I mean, you'll have to wait and see. I can't say anything. Like everything I'm in, I was like, I have to just like keep a tight
Yeah,
lip.
if you haven't seen the trailer, go see it, and you'll understand when I was just like, oh no, for Will. But go see Midsommar, and also thank you so much for joining us. This was so much fun.
Thank you. All right.